Hello friends and welcome back to HCS Atlanta, hosted by FaZe Clan. Good news, if you're here looking to watch FaZe Clan versus Ascended Baseline, you are in the right place. If you're looking for other teams, unfortunately you have to stay here now. That's the way that works. You are on board, myself, Jersey1 and Daniel Gaskin, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all.
You just can't leave now. You have to stay here forever.
You're
That's the rule, but if you are looking for FaZe, it's our first chance to see how they're actually going to be able to play here today. And as the reigning champs from last event, there's always the curiosity of what are they going to look like. But they're going to be going up against the Europeans Ascending Baseline, who have already shown today in a Game 5 against Complexity, they are playing pretty hot. They sadly didn't beat Complexity for themselves, but at least taking them to a Game 5 was very impressive.
Definitely a confidence builder for Ascending Baseline, and perhaps they can look at that as they're closing the distance on Quadrant and ITBU. Of course, they're adversaries in Europe, and every single time they seem to qualify for these events, they are nothing more than cannon fodder. But going to Game 5 against Complexity, like I say, does give them a little bit of a confidence booster that perhaps they belong here in the big competitions and they can pose a problem to the biggest teams. Having said that, FaZe Clan, they are a very different entity entirely when it comes to caliber of roster you're playing against.
It's different going to a Game 5 against a team that finishes, around the top 6 area, but to try and take on the champions is a different matter. But, we have seen FaZe Clan typically have slow starts to Fridays, go to Game 5s against teams that are maybe in the top 16, top 12 area. So that's something that Ascending Baseline can take away from this. And they did have a nice start. They were halfway through the first hill, but now FaZe Clan have responded. It seems like they've woken up a little bit, and they're about to put the first point on the board once they get the hit. And there we go, 1-0 to FaZe Clan. It was a good start from Ascending Baseline, but just not able to get over the finish line with that first hill.
Strong start, not a strong finish for hill number 1. Renegade's got camouflage. BastosS hit the respawn screen. I think I'd like to touch upon BastosS and Sunriz, and we speak about players who are grinders, put in the shifts and play all the time. They're exactly that. Two Frenchmen who have been competing for the longest time in Halo Infinite and are finally starting to see some success and some reward for the hours and graft that they have put in. So it's great to see them consistently qualifying for international competition. And of course, it's always good to see Mose back over here, trying to get amongst it, back to the top 6 where he once was. He's fallen short on many occasions, but he's still here and still has that hunger and desire to compete in Halo, and it's always great to see.
I think the target for Ascending Baseline is going to be just trying to get out of pools and not be that historic European team that just gets 3-0'd, gets sent out of the competition and doesn't get to compete in the championship bracket. And that could have been the matchup against Complexity, right? Getting to Game 5, if they had taken them down, that might have been the moment where they're able to get out of said pool. Against FaZe Clan, it's an entirely different beast. I do think that you've got the element of surprise. I always say that, FaZe aren't going to be looking up Ascending Baseline. No disrespect to Ascending Baseline EU, but FaZe aren't going to be researching them. They're not going to be worrying about them. They'll be going into this expecting to 3-0 them. Maybe a 3-1. They'll always give these European teams a little bit of credit and say, look, we know they can do a job, especially on a Slayer. They might catch us off guard, but if you've got that element of surprise, there's always something that maybe you could be hiding up your sleeve. I know that we've got quite deep into Halo Infinite's competition now, that there's not many 2 surprises to be had. There's not many strategies that can suddenly be come up with that haven't been used already before. But certainly when it comes to preparation, about starting strategies, etc., there is always that possibility that you can maybe catch a team off guard.
I think you mentioned about pools and how often the Ascending Baseline might find themselves in this situation and unable to compete. Most of the time, when they make it to pools, they're just trying not to drown. They're trying to swim along with the big fish, trying to coexist. Oftentimes, they find themselves falling short. Like I say, that result against Complexity, although it didn't go their way, showing great signs. They were able to compete against Complexity. FaZe Clan, though, already 1 hill to the good. It's pretty even in terms of time in this second hill. And perhaps a little push that Ascending Baseline can put together, they can maybe tie up this game. But as we stand, SnakeBite's over towards back blue. Royal 2 and Millsy have traded. That's going to mean the ever-experienced SnakeBite will step inside the hill and continue to score for his team.
FaZe now starting to outslay Ascending Baseline by about 10 kills already. So Royal 2 and SnakeBite beginning to put numbers on the board. It's looking pretty dire for the Europeans. And it's 2-0. It's got more dire. So it was a promising start. And it was probably a hot-headed start of, we've just come off the back of a Game 5 versus Complexity. We're feeling good. And FaZe were probably caught off guard a little bit, like, oh, okay, we weren't expecting that kind of speed at the start of this game, but now FaZe have wrestled back control. They find themselves with a 2-0 lead.
And it's something Ascendant Baseline are probably pretty used to when they play against teams like Quadrant and ITB. They're well able to compete, well able to put things together. It's about when you utilize those strategies, when you execute them, that you keep them, you hold those setups. And unfortunately for them, when they play against the caliber of these teams, they just come a little bit unstuck and then perhaps find it difficult to get themselves back into the game. And as we head into hill number 3 over towards Whirlpool, FaZe are in what could be described as comfy zone.
Yeah, this game's not going to be lost in individual skill, really. I mean, every member of Ascending Baseline EU has played enough Halo Infinite that in an individual gunfight, they can kill FaZe members. I mean, I'm not saying they would win every single 1v1 in their favor. There's an example. SnakeBite is one of the best players in the world and shows it in an individual gunfight. But 5 times out of 10, Mose probably can still win that fight, right? Maybe not 5, maybe 4. I'll give him 60% is going to go in favor of SnakeBite. It's the team aspect, it's the teamwork, it's the tactics that FaZe Clan know, it's the chemistry, it's the experience that Ascending Baseline just don't have. But it's games like this that they need to play to learn, to get put in that position so they can say, okay, well, this is how we've got to try and escape out of these scenarios as Renegade puts a big double up. He almost made it a triple.
Eventually does fall. I think it's an interesting point to raise as well. Of course, Ascendant Baseline will find themselves in the situation in Europe where perhaps they're dominating most teams, but then they come up against 2 or 3 that give them a real problem, and it can be very difficult for them to learn how to break setups, hold setups. And when you play against FaZe Clan, you play against Complexity, they ask you questions that perhaps you didn't have the answers to, and all they need is a few more reps in these competitions, and perhaps they can close that gap, particularly on the other teams in Europe.
Well, they're close to closing out this 3rd hill and putting themselves within touching distance of FaZe Clan going into hill number 4. It looks like FaZe are going to let this one go and will set up for next instead. So that is a great momentum booster for Ascending Baseline, and kills-wise, they're starting to put a little bit more on the board as well. As I say, that Royal 2 gets double. And Sunriz just chasing ghosts at that point, it felt like. It means that 3 are dead for Ascending Baseline, and FaZe Clan can take a bit of control on that side of the map with Camouflage spawning in 27 seconds. I'd say it's not looking like an absolute demolition job on the side of FaZe. But I would also say, knowing FaZe quite well, probably at 60%, 70% right now. You can't imagine that the callouts are going to be screaming at each other, especially in a game 1. We have seen it happen in the past where FaZe don't give it their all against some of these teams, and then they kind of get bitten for it and have to wake themselves up going into games 2 and 3.
I think it is an interesting point because we heard about the Complexity result. We've seen the end of the game 5 when we were up on the main broadcast, and the question that because we didn't see the game, we're asking, did Complexity underperform, or were Ascendant Baseline that good to push them the distance? And I think from what we're seeing here, certainly in the early stages of this game, they're able to hold their own. It's like you say, in those individual gunfights, they're not afraid to fight anybody. It's just the teamwork aspect where they struggle.
Well, 1 minute to try and tie it up. Sunriz trying to get a little bit of hill time. FaZe Clan have the lead, and I doubt they're going to try and play time here because they are so close to try and make it 3-1. Because if they secure the 3rd hill here, it's game, it's done. But Ascending Baseline making it difficult for them. SnakeBite, one of the last members to try and defend this hill. And it's going to be a 2-man swing from Ascending Baseline as well. They are really starting to demonstrate their chemistry here. A lot of matchmaking has been played between these 4 players, and now on the biggest stage against the biggest players, the best players in the world, they're saying, we do not fear you as long as we're working together here.
Now the question remains, if FaZe Clan, the defending world champions, are playing at 60 or 70%, perhaps it's time to start shoving some coal into the machine and maybe get some of these things moving, because like we say, you doubt this team at your own peril. They're well and truly able to make it difficult for you at the best of times. SnakeBite's going to slide in, loses shields, as is Sunriz. Both of them happy to back away for now and play their lives. Sunriz recognizing how important it is to play his life in this situation, because if he goes down, he perhaps hands the game to FaZe Clan.
But he's also looking at that clock saying 14 seconds, we need to be getting in this hill, boys. BastosS, Mose, they get some kills. Renegade's last remaining player. It's going to be almost 4 dead, but not quite. Renegade wins the gun engagement, but are we going to see Baseline? Yes, they will tie it up 2-2. So for all the dominance, for all the kills FaZe had, suddenly ascending baseline and say, hey, we're taking this one to overtime against the best team in the world. This is going to do wonders for their confidence.
And you do say all the kills that they have. I mean, Royal 2, 25, 4, and 13, so quite a lot of kills. SnakeBite also already over the 20-point threshold, make it 21 and kill the kill column, but heavily outslaying our FaZe clan. But we've seen this from them before, a little bit complacent. They get a lot of kills, but they're not getting the objective time to boot. Perhaps having too much fun, killing things and not stepping inside the hill.
You're saying, when do they kind of turn it up a little bit? When do they shift into the next gear? That's got to be the call from just SnakeBite of the world, right? He's going to say, all right, guys, let's step this up now. We're probably playing a little bit slow. Maybe we're not calling things out. We are giving them the opportunity to get into this game. As on the other side, you've got Mose, 21 kills now. He's only going +1, but those 21 kills have done wonders for ascending baseline going up here against FaZe. And they are the team looking more likely to score this final hill right now. There's 1 minute 40 on the clock left as we are into overtime. The FaZe now gain a little bit of control here, and if they can get a double down long haul, that could really open up some scoring for them.
Royal 2 continues to slay out. Bottom middle still the point of contest, as Royal 2 now will slide into the hill and trying to close the gap on the lead that ascending baseline had surmounted. Millsy up towards Batledge, puts down a couple of shots, will receive a lot of damage. Mose down to no shields, tries to escape towards bottom tower, unable to do so. Royal 2 will then step outside of the hill. Interesting play has been made. Information must have come his way that he was not safe where he sat, and decided instead to control the elevator spawns, perhaps trying to push ascending baseline EU over towards the yellow pipe spawn. So they're really at arm's length here. Happy to run down the clock is Royal 2 here and continue to slay. But again, nobody inside the hill for FaZe clan until this very moment as Renegade gets a kill, and now they are starting to score, have taken the lead in that regard. And what do ascending baseline have? Currently down 2 members, make it 3. They've got one more push here perhaps before the curtain is called. Sunriz, bottom elevator, down to no shields, not able to get the job done. FaZe clan win 1-0.
Great effort though from ascending baseline EU. At what point can I just call them ascending baseline? Are NA out of the tournament yet in the open bracket? That's the real question. As soon as they are out of the open bracket, they just become ascending baseline, not ascending baseline EU, right? They're able to take that
I think
toll.
what you do is, because you're ascending baseline EU are in pools, you call them ascending baseline and you call the other team ascending baseline NA.
That's how we differ.
That's how we do it.
Okay, that makes more sense, but I think they should be proud of themselves. I do think that FaZe are a little bit slow to start here, and it is something that they have been criticized for doing in pool play, but I do not want to take away what we just saw from ascending baseline EU, and that is not because I'm a European. Don't get me wrong.
It has something to do with that.
I've been criticized many a time,
and you'll continue to be criticized.
Supporting European teams, most importantly the ones who have struggled in pool play. Like, hey, why did you always give us a hard time? But
you're honest, that's your problem.
I am a very honest man.
Yeah.
But I do think that FaZe clan have just shown a little bit of class in those final moments, and they've shut down any possibility from the European teams.
Well, that's it for game 1. We'll be back very shortly with game number 2. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks. Game 2 of the series. If you're just joining us, FaZe clan 1-0 to the good after a less than dominant performance, you will say, in the scoreline. Slays would tell a different story, but they did get the job done in game number 1, and ascending baseline now find themselves on the back foot here in the Slayer, and you have to think, Dan, it's an old cliche, but they have got to win the Slayer.
I feel like I was rudely interrupted by the break, actually. I was making a point and I never really got to make it, and now I've forgotten.
The break was my call anyway.
It was you. You just didn't want me to make it.
You just rambling.
I think I was saying that, you know, European teams are often cannon fodder, and when we get performances like that where they're able to come close against a team like FaZe clan, we have to give them credit and we have to give them props, because it is difficult to come into these tournaments and perform like that against the best teams in the world when you've not been able to have that same kind of practice. As Frosty, with the shock rifle and camouflage, starting to annoy ascending baseline. But I think, again, this is another good game type for ascending baseline to try and get a point on the board, a map on the board against FaZe clan. Although, even though it is a Slayer, even though it is one that I think ascending baseline will be comfortable with, FaZe clan historically have been very good at this map and mode.
Yeah, it's, of course, a spiritual successor of sorts to Plaza. You might think, well, Mose, BastosS, Sunriz, they've got a lot of game time on Halo 5, so perhaps there's a chance for them. Now, the little issue that we have is the FaZe clan are world champions in Halo Infinite, but they're also done it a couple of times in Halo 5 as well, so they know exactly how to play Plaza. And you can see here, 16-12, the score, currently a 4-kill advantage if you can't do maths. Dan helps me most of the time counting my fingers. Frosty now over towards Snipe. camouflage up in 10 seconds or so. So FaZe Clan have everything they need to really extend this lead.
It's when it gets to the toes that it gets a little bit weird. He makes me count them, and he makes me touch them.
Surprisingly, they're the same number every time you count them too.
Every single time, you just keep going. 3-kill advantage now, no toes to be touched. And active camouflage has just spawned. Is it going to be going in the hands of FaZe Clan yet again? Will be the real question as Royal2 puts another one on the board. The slaying difference, by the way, in game 1 was kind of crazy, as somehow he gets that kill. It's going to be Millsy with the camouflage, though, to try and put them back on the map.
Mr. Millsy. Lost the camouflage.
I've been there one too many times where you put the body shots in, you think you've done enough, you go for the melee, and it still doesn't get the kill.
He put 2 in, then dropped, anticipated that the third one would come, but then it was a swing and a miss, and then you put yourself in an awkward position. And SnakeBite makes you pay, as he often makes people pay when they make mistakes. I hate that about him.
How much has he made you pay?
Money or in terms of shields and health?
God knows.
In actual fact, I don't match him in matchmaking all too often, and he normally buys the milkshakes.
It's unsurprising, really, with his rank. You might have matched him on a Smurf once in a while.
I would never know if it was him.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't tell you even if he did. He'd just lord it over you.
He's sneaky.
So a 6-kill lead now for FaZe Clan. Ascending baseline, though, keeping this close enough. They haven't let it get out of hand. I mean, we saw already one Solitude Slayer get out of hand earlier today. It was 17-2 in favor of Optic Gaming against Pure, but somehow Pure came back into that game and were able to win it, in fact. So it almost feels like for the rest of the tournament, as soon as I see something like this, I'm like, wow, it's an 11-kill lead, but you know, they could come back into it, right? Because Pure could.
This is a conversation that we have had very recently, actually. You said it hasn't gotten out of hand, and we asked the question, does that mean that sometimes it's in hand? But then we had a conversation yesterday. People are overwhelmed, people are underwhelmed, but are people ever just whelmed?
I feel quite whelmed.
I'd like the Twitch chat to answer that if they could.
Sometimes
join in the conversation.
Let us
That's
know.
what we do over
Do
here.
you ever feel
Whelmed.
whelmed? Not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed, just whelmed.
Perfect. The Goldilocks of whelmed, if you will.
I'd tell you what, FaZe Clan right now, they're quite whelming. They haven't been overwhelming, they haven't been underwhelming. Just
Whelmage is what we
a
could
bunch
say.
of whelm.
A
They have an
whole host of
11-kill
whelm.
lead as well to work with. Now, yes, we saw a lead thrown away by Optic Gaming earlier today, but this isn't Optic Gaming, this is FaZe Clan, who typically are the best team in the world at closing games out. So I think realistically an 10-kill game is going to be a little bit too much for Ascending Baseline. However, if they are to overturn it and make FaZe Clan look rather underwhelming rather than whelming,
Good whelmage.
it's going to be those camouflages they need to start getting and making them count.
Is this lead a little bit too unsurmountable? We'll soon find out as we head into the latter stage of this game. BastosS and Millsy combined, they get a kill onto Renegade, but they answer one back. So a 1-for-1 trade on the scoreline, not going to be good enough for Ascending Baseline as they're very quickly running out of deaths. Millsy gets a kill in blue, SnakeBite answers back once more, and that's something that FaZe Clan are very good at. When they lose numbers, they make sure they can get a trade so they can minimize some of those losses.
I do like this team though, the Ascending Baseline roster. I think it's some new blood that Europe needed. I say new blood, they've been playing for a long time, but they're not necessarily the names we were seeing making events last year and in year one. Instead it was more the likes of Riots and Lunny, yeah, and Mose. Mose would be playing with them. But now we're seeing new names of younger talent who have been kind of waiting in the wings to get their moment, and now this is that moment. This and London was their chance to really show what they can be made of. And they've managed to close this gap to 7.
That is less than 10.
It is less than 10. They are
Statistically
certainly,
speaking.
they've not allowed FaZe to run away with this game too much, but I think it has just been out of striking distance for the majority of the game as Frosty gets a big kill onto Mose, and that one might be one of the final nails in the coffin here.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Tantalizingly close, in which maybe 1 or 2 round of slays will put you right back into it, but every single time you look to put the pressure on, unfortunately, FaZe answer back with a kill or 2 of their own. Frosty gets 1, Mose is in trouble over towards Elevator, he also falls. BastosS answers back, but unfortunately FaZe only require 1 more kill, and they're not going to throw away a lead this significant, certainly against a team of the ilk of Ascending Baseline. Millsy will get a kill just to extend this game a little further, but Mose unable to escape the crosshairs of Royal2, and FaZe Clan double their series lead.
They go 2-0. It's an expected lead, that's for sure. But Ascending Baseline still looking good, keeping relatively close against the current world champions, which is definitely something that they need to be proud of. But now, being 2-0 down, is that going to be a little bit too much with the series left to go? We can only find out one way, and that is by getting another game. But of course, that game will come very shortly. But right now, we're going to go for a quick break. When we come back, it will be match number 3.
Game 3 then, folks. FaZe Clan up against Ascending Baseline EU. And these two teams sharing a pool, as it were, currently with Complexity and, of course, any open team that may join them. So no doubt, Complexity very interested in the results and the goings-on of this one here. But you have to think, if you're Ascending Baseline, with the performances they've been able to put up and how competitive they have been somewhat in games 1 and 2, the question is, are they now starting to look upon the open team that might enter this pool, Dan? And do they think they have enough to get the job done? Frosty hitting the triple kill. That was bananas.
Well, you name it the wig wobbler for a reason.
It'd be wobbling.
Frosty made it clear he wanted that sniper rifle at the start of the game, and he has already put it to work. And there's been many a clip of Frosty over the years in every iteration of Halo with a sniper rifle, and Halo Infinite is no different. If it's in his hands, you better be on his POV, as BastosS doesn't even get a chance off spawn to even think about where he is before his head gets ripped off.
Frosty just bullying top tower with the sniper rifle. And Ascending Baseline going to have to send a lot of resources his way. BastosS wants more, and he almost got more. Frosty was offering him a fade.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me thrice, game over.
Declan thrice.
Declan thrice, great play. At the moment, they're just allowing Frosty to have tower because he's been hitting those shots, that they're avoiding the sight lines. But that means there's so much map control for FaZe to work with, and they are funneling Ascending Baseline into all of these different avenues, which are very much watched by the rest of the team, and it just is like clockwork now. As it's going to be a close to 100-point lead right off the rip because of some of those snipe shots. Yeah,
you have to say Ascending Baseline really were treating C like it was an unexplored part of the map. They'd never seen it before, and rightfully so, such as the shots that Frosty was hitting. It was grayed out on their map. That's because it belonged to Frosty. Like Mordor, do not step over there because Frosty was handling business.
He was literally like the Eye of Sauron.
Yep.
And every time they moved, he'd snap towards them. Need to be finding some sort of cave to go through instead, and they went bottom middle. But instead they found a bunch of goblins. But now, once the Eye of Sauron has been deleted here, suddenly Ascend Baseline have the opportunity to control the map a little bit. And if they've learned anything from their European counterparts, is that you really can win a game with a good couple of trip caps here. You can be behind, but you can really pull yourself back in with one good setup.
You already see themselves clawing away at that lead. Unfortunately for them, the Renegade now with the sniper rifle, with the camouflage as well, as it just dissipates now. Eyes trained in towards Garage, anticipating there was going to be a spawn there. It does come! And Renegade obliges with a headshot. You don't want to be showing too much face to these boys because they will rip it off.
See ya. Don't even show the back of your head. In fact, just maybe don't show anything at this point. Stop it, Renegade. The confidence in which FaZe are playing is evident. Frosty was doing the same thing, like not backing off from a gunfight, instead trying to line up the no-scope with a sniper rifle. It's, of course, a power weapon, and we do see players play like that in matchmaking all the time, but against some of the other top pros, you might not have the same confidence because if you miss one, you're going to be dead. But sadly for Ascend Baseline, the way that FaZe are playing right now, it's just a case of, we want this done, we want it a 3-0, and we do not fear you in any fight.
That's a good point you bring up as well, of course, because you don't typically see it against teams that they might respect a little bit more because they're wary that if they lose a sniper rifle, it could be detrimental to the cause. But like you say, perhaps giving Ascending Baseline EU little to no respect and trying to end this series as quickly as possible. But Ascending Baseline really hanging in there now. They're back to scoring once more and trying to make this one difficult.
And a chance for them to have the sniper rifle for the first time as well. Not that many bullets to work with, but enough bullets to at least make a difference. They weren't really able to get hold of B here, and it doesn't look like they're going to have the chance to as well. It's going to be a big scrap. Royal 2 does lose the fight, so BastosS has done a job, but SnakeBite was there to support.
Did BastosS step out of A before it was capped and Renegade got the reset? And he continued to go big door rather than turn around and fight. Was that a misplay on his part? It probably was. I think that's what I seen there. It looked as though for all the world he had a capture, but he stepped out and A still belonged to FaZe. So Renegade stealing that one away, stealing it back before it could even be taken. BastosS trying to wrestle control of B now, but no doubt the push will come. The numbers advantage does favour ascending baseline, and with that they're looking to lock in yet another triple cap. And they've got it locked in. They're losing C. And FaZe are trying to fight over from the camouflage side, and they've got the first pick onto Mose. And Frosty look at that insult to injury here and take down BastosS as well. Frosty turns his back for a moment, good enough for a trade, and SnakeBite gets a kill elsewhere.
It's always a frustrating one when you've done the initial damage, you've managed to bamboozle them with the back and forth, but then you have to go in for the melee and you know full well it's going to be a trade. Whereas if you're going to win this game, if you're going to get back into this, you can't really be trading there. Sure, you'll take a trade, it doesn't seem bad in the grand scheme of things, but it's not going to win you it. 187 to 88. It's now a 100-point lead for FaZe, and they're closing in on making this a 3-0 victory. But we have seen Ascending Baseline get close to a trip cap twice. And as I've mentioned, all it takes is one trip cap, and they are back in this game.
They'll know that too. And they're holding out for it.
Dear, not again.
Although, typically bad news when Frosty picks up a sniper rifle and a repulsor, and you know he's looking to hit some clips and have them featured on the HCS channel over on Twitter or X if you're old school.
It's actually Twitter if you're old school, X if you're new school.
Whatever school you're in, it's one of the two if you're attending those classes. Frosty still got the sniper rifle heading over towards C. A lot of ammunition to play with, and Millsy could be his victim, unfortunately. For him, didn't have to use it, but could use it on Sunriz instead. And it's like you said, the confidence that Frosty and indeed Renegade were playing with the sniper rifle, it's frightening.
He's more than happy to do the same thing again here from top tower. Just watch over top mid, look over towards dummies every now and then. Recognize there's not going to be anyone there. Imagine that if that was a collab, by the way. It was lining up, and I was thinking it was going to happen. He almost actually took off SnakeBite.
It was almost a collab with SnakeBite and Millsy.
It doesn't matter who it is. He says, if anyone gets in the way of my bullet, so be it. That's life.
That's Amore.
215 now ticks across for FaZe Clan. And with the sniper rifle still with 3 bullets and maybe one more push for Ascending Baseline to work with, it's not looking great.
BastosS back B. Millsy there too. So they are still trying to fight tooth and nail for this game and extend the series. Desperately trying to get more reps on LAN. Perhaps that could pay dividends against the open team that does enter into this pool. Millsy putting down a couple of shots. Sniper rifle for Frosty again, finding the face of Sunriz. The game just comes so easy to him, and it's incredibly frustrating for me.
Last bullet as well, just like more than confident to jump out with it. BastosS gets slammed into the wall.
Has Frosty left the tower? That's the question that needs answering.
He's the Eye of Sauron, he can't leave the tower. He's literally stuck in that place until someone puts on the ring, as it's going to be a triple kill for him now. All 4 are dead, and this game's looking all but over now.
Almost done and dusted. Perhaps Ascending Baseline have one more opportunity, but they're running out of time, and they're locked in tight to a trip cap, and the kills keep going against them, and FaZe Clan will complete the clean sweep. Ascending Baseline, competitive at times, but ultimately it's the score and the result that matters, and that one was 3-0 FaZe Clan.
I still think Ascending Baseline can hold their head up high with how they performed, particularly in the first 2 games. The third one was a little bit more one-sided, but a lot for them to learn, a lot for them to take away. It will mean they are 0-2 in the pools, so they will have to beat the team coming through open bracket. Is it going to be a Mind Freak? Is it going to be a Native, for example? I'm sure we'll keep a keen eye on it, but can we see this European roster get out of pools? We'll have to wait until the open team arrives.
And we do now have a nice match set up a little bit later in the day. SnakeBite and co, FaZe Clan up against Complexity, and no doubt that will have a large implication as to who tops the pool. So if you're looking forward to watching that, that will be on the A stream very, very shortly. But that's all we've got time for here. We'll get another game rolling very shortly, but don't go anywhere. Keep it locked to HCS.